Hey, it's Dr. Dwain Woode, and I'm so glad that you're here. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level. And in this year, new you. I'm talking to adults with type 2 diabetes who want to put their diabetes in remission, get off of medication, improve their metabolic health, who want to reverse their diabetes. That's what we do. That's what we do. Glad that you're here. If you are new, go ahead and put new in the comments because I'd love to welcome you. If you have questions as we move throughout the show, go ahead and drop those in the comments as well, as I'd like to get to those and answer those for you. You'll see I'm not in my normal space. I am actually out with the family and not in my studio, but I wanted to come on and actually have a pretty interesting conversation about what do you do when you are traveling. This is a kind of a traveling check-in. And up until probably about 15 to 20 minutes ago when I started putting this all together, I had been fasting, and so that put me at right at 49, 50 hours of fasting. 50 hours of fasting. We traveled today. We've got some things going on. And so we're going to take some time and go through that. Before I do that, though, I want to go ahead and do my check-in. And when I do a check-in, I typically talk about how I'm feeling physically, mentally, and emotionally, because those are the places, those are the areas that people will have issues with, have challenges with. And so physically, actually, I'm feeling pretty good. I did sleep on the plane. I slept last night. I got some sleep. It wasn't a lot of sleep because if you remember, I did my check-in last night. I was late into the evening. I was packing. Got up this morning, went to work, and then headed to the airport right after work and so forth. So you can see there was a lot going on. And so I did get some sleep, not as much as I needed, but I did sleep on the plane and actually am feeling well rested. Mentally, I'm feeling clear. I'm not feeling sluggish. I'm not feeling as though I'm not feeling as though I'm dull or grasping, if you will. I feel pretty sharp. And then emotionally excited because I'm hanging out with the family and doing some fun things. We got some good things going on that here in just a minute. And as you know how we do, I've got my monitors that we're going to take a look at here in just a minute. Well, my continuous monitor is what I have. So I've got my this is my Libre 3. And you'll see there my blood sugar 147, and throughout the day we're kind of hanging out about 100 or a little below 100. And then once I started eating this evening, once we got to the hotel, you see that blood sugar goes up. Down at the bottom you'll see the dashed green lines. That really just tells me how long I have, and if I scroll up just, let's see if I can do that a little bit more. I can't, but it says 13 days down below that. And then if I hop over, well, let me do this. Let me take some of this stuff off my screen. But I want to hop over and take a look at my Dexcom so you can see what that looks like. And for that one, we'll be able to scroll through a little bit. Let's see. For this one, we'll be able to scroll through a little bit and see what the numbers have been doing. And so right now, as you see, blood sugar 159, and I'm going to actually see if I could show you what I'm eating. This is a local place here. Let's see if I can change this really quickly. Let's do this first. All right, here we go. Ready? Let's see if I can do that. Let's do this one. Okay. So this is a local place that's here. So there's a salad, and this is some lamb, and of course that's some basmati rice. And you'll see I'm eating the lamb. Actually, it was a kebab, so lamb and chicken, and of course all the chicken is gone, and all that's left is that piece of lamb. And there's the salad that I was eating. That stuff right there is really spicy. I'm not sure what it's called, but it packs a wallop. So that's what I started eating, and that is what resulted in. Let's go over, get back to my blood sugar. And that's what resulted in this blood sugar that you see, that rise. And so let's go back and let's take a look at that. So right in here, 159. And if I scroll back and back and back, you'll see that before I started eating, so for most of the day, my blood sugars have been in the low one teens, 99. And then as I got into this space right here, when it started kind of climbing up, once I started eating, and that was just as I was eating. That's what I was getting ready to go on. As I was getting ready to come on here, that I started eating, and so that's within the last, I don't know, within the last hour. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, so that's what my Dexcom Clarity or Dexcom is showing. That's the 24 hours. If I do the 12 hours, of course, for most of this 12 hours up until here, we actually were doing pretty good in terms of numbers. And it'd be interesting to see what happens here at the end, what happens to those blood sugars. All right. So when we're traveling, traveling poses, and this thing back here says the placery. So I'm in the hotel, in the dining area. So when we're traveling, interesting things, right? Because traveling has associated with it several issues. And when I say issues, they are things that will come up, and if we're not careful, we will find ourselves stressing and going into a space that does not set us up for success in the long term. Just today, as we were traveling, actually, I was talking to my wife, and we were talking about the conversation that people will have in their mind as they are trying to navigate their social situations. Traveling being one of those, but you can extrapolate this to lots of different areas, lots of different times. But during traveling, some of the challenges that we have are things of logistics, and I'll kind of outline those here in just a minute. So logistics, emotions, temptations, just being out of sorts, being out of your routine, and all of those things can cause anxiety, they can cause some distress, and they can cause people to go off of their eating plan. Then we talked about the HEAT model: habits, emotions, access, and taste. Well, in traveling, a lot of those come into play. Okay, so we'll walk through those as well. But what we want to do is, I want to make sure that you guys understand that when we're traveling, that we want to still continue to set ourselves up for success. And we set ourselves up for success by planning ahead. But let's go through and let's talk a little bit about the HEAT model. And the HEAT model says, if you recall, that there are things that will push us in the direction of getting off of our meal plan. There are those habits, emotions, access to food, the taste of food. All of those can derail and push us in a direction that we don't want to go if we are not paying attention. And so much of what we do when we talk about habits, or when we talk about eating, is with the intention of dealing with those. In fact, right now on our show, Dwain Woode MD Live, we are in the process of dealing with and creating or going through the COPE model. Right, the COPE model is a mechanism that allows us to put a pause in what we do so that we can reconnect to our higher brain function, and so that we're not derailed by all of the things that we talk about that go into the heat model. If you remember, we talked a bit about the fact that the brain, the amygdala, part of the brain that is responsible for survival, goes into high gear whenever things seem to be putting us in danger. Right, so putting us in danger, and so the brain says, "Hey, this is something that I've got to deal with," and so it goes on, or goes off, if you will, and it is doing its thing in trying to find a way to keep us safe. That is its job, right? To keep us from danger. The issue is that the brain, that amygdala part, it really does not have any reasoning. So it is purely a reactionary function, or reactionary organ, if you will, because it's kind of like you're going out and you're seeing a tiger. Now, if a tiger is there, then yes, that is something we want to be sure that we're getting away from. And so the brain, the amygdala's job is to say, no, we don't need to be here. We need to be gone. And so the amygdala begins to move, and it begins to say, we don't want to be in this space. Okay, so I've got to get out of here. I've got to move. I've got to, whatever I got to do, because we want to stay safe. That's the amygdala's job. The prefrontal cortex, on the other hand, its job is to bring reason to bear. And so so what happens sometimes is the amygdala will get out there, and it will see something, and it will be in the space of saying, hey, we gotta work on this, we've got to be safe. But the prefrontal cortex gets to modulate that. Okay, and let me give you an example. If you go out and you see a tiger, if you go out and see a tiger, then the amygdala's job is to say, hey, we need to run. And so the amygdala starts to say, hey, muscles, come on, let's move. Let me get some cortisol. Let me get us out of here so that we can stay safe. That is great. But the brain, the prefrontal cortex, will jump in and say, hey, wait a minute, we do see that there is a lion there. We do see that there is a tiger there. But the tiger is in a zoo. And so we don't have to respond by running, because this situation is different. Notice what happened. The amygdala is ready to go, but the prefrontal cortex flips on there and sits on top of it and says, hey, no, we don't have to respond that way, because we have some context. Okay. All right. So let's hop over and let's talk a little bit about the heat model. So remember, the heat model says habits, emotions, access, and taste. And so when we're traveling, then there are certain habits that we have developed in traveling, right? So as a matter of fact, part of the fun, part of the excitement, part of what we do in traveling is the food that we see. Right? So part of it is the excitement of going to a new place and trying a new thing. I know one of our big things is whenever we go to a different location, we like to sample different types of food. In fact, what I showed you just a little while ago was a different place that somebody here recommended, right? Because we came in, it was late. We actually had some issues with our flight. And so we got in later than we were supposed to, and the plans that we had shifted. In fact, our plans shifted back about 4 hours, and so the people that were supposed to meet us, we got here much later, and so those plans were squashed. And so we're now at the hotel, and talk to someone here and says, hey, where's a good place to eat? And they gave us an example, or gave us this place, and so we went out and we got this, and so that's what I'm eating right now. So the habits that we formed, right? So those are triggers. Emotions during travel, that is a stressful situation. I don't know for you, but it is. It creates anxiety. It creates cortisol, and even if it's not a a big issue, like in our case today, which raised emotion. But even if it's not like that, then just the normal travel that we go through will have significant implications on how we are able to move through the process, move through the travel, move through whatever eating plan we may be on. For instance, in this case, it was fasting. And so, yeah. And remember, the emotions will short circuit the amygdala, or short circuit the connection between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, so that the modulation that we get from the prefrontal cortex is no longer valid, and the amygdala is just doing what it wants. And part of that is, a lot of times, is eating. And then access. Well, let me back up to habit for a minute. Part of I'll give you my example, my today. So we went to one gate. We had to change gates to go to another. So we're sitting there, and now the next flight is going to be 3.5 hours from now. So we're hanging out, and so we're sitting there, and my son is hungry, and so I go with him and we had to walk. I mean, a long way because the concourse that we were on, the gates that we were at, they didn't have anything that he wanted or he could eat. And so we're walking, and as we're walking, we're passing all these things, and people are coming towards us, and they have the food. All right, so we'll get back to access for a minute. And so they have the food, and as you walk by different places, you smell the smells, and you see the people sitting at the different eateries, and they're eating and they're laughing, right? So habits are there. And then, of course, the emotions, okay, want to be like everybody else. And then, of course, access. So now that my son and I, we show up where the place is that he wants to eat, and around that place is every possible restaurant that you could think of. Yes. And so we're walking around, and I deliberately went and got, and you guys know that I use this is what I use for hydration. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and take a swig. So now I'm there, and he got his stuff. We're waiting for it, and I deliberately left and went and bought this because I didn't have any with me, because of course you can't bring it through security. But I was not hydrating as we were waiting, and I started to feel myself being tugged in that direction. Okay, you got to get something to eat. And my plan was that I was going to fast until we met with friends, and then I was going to break the fast at the meal, right? So that was the plan. And so as I'm going through, right, so that becomes now the anticipation in my mind that we are going to break the fast. Once the issue came up with, now we're going to be much later, and so we're probably not going to meet them. So my brain is now having this little conniption because we had a plan. The plan was we're breaking the fast. Now I could have, and I actually tried to say, okay, I'm going to continue to fast since we're not really eating with friends. There's no point in me breaking the fast. But that also is part of the emotion, right? So the habits are there, people are eating, the emotions that are there, the anticipation of meeting friends, now the disappointment that we're not going to do that. Hey, we're delayed, not just for an hour, but now 3.5 hours. We're getting in later, right? And so all that is building. And so now there's access. Now there's things all around me as I'm looking at him getting his food. And so he got his food. We sat, we ate, I drank. I got 2 of these, so I drank them. I got some gum, right? So once again, that motion that goes along with it. And so we went back to the gate. We sat, we ate, we got on the plane. I slept. And then we landed. And when we landed, things seemed to be okay. And so now going to the hotel and getting all settled, but in my head, we were supposed to be eating, right? We were supposed to be eating. And so I anticipated what we were going to be eating, right? So here comes the taste, right? So habits, emotions, access. and taste. And so when we got into the room, my wife says, okay, so what are you going to do? And so I said, okay, yeah, I'm going to get something. And so anyway, we came down. I asked the people, the person at the front desk, and they said, hey, this is what I would recommend, and that's what I got, and that's what you see me eating. So as we're moving through the day in traveling, all of the heat model comes into play. All of the heat model comes into play. The cope model comes into play, right? Because when we were there when my son was getting his food, I was going to actually order something, and I paused. I stopped. I said, "Wait a minute. What really is going on?" It wasn't that I was hungry, and I knew that it wasn't that I was hungry. It was that there were the emotions that were building. It was the sight, the sound, the smell that was around me. It was now the access that I had to all of this. And then it was the anticipation of the taste, right? And when I say taste, remember, as we're dealing with this, we're not really chasing after the taste. We're actually chasing after what the food does. Right, and so for me, the food was a calming entity. It was a anticipation of community, anticipation of getting together with friends, seeing people that I hadn't seen for a while, and being away with the family and having some quiet time. So all of that is now built into this situation that's happening. And let's drink some more of this. All of this is now built into what's going on, right? And so the emotions are building, and so finally we got here, and I got the food and put it, so it's sitting here, and then I come down because the Wi-Fi, and this is being done by Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi wasn't quite what I needed for the stream, and so I came down. And of course, all the lights are off, so I had to go find the guy at the desk and say, "Hey, can you turn the lights on?" And I set up, and this is where I am. This is the space that I'm in right now. Let me see. I'm gonna change here for a minute, and I'm gonna show you guys what my setup looks like. Let me see if I can. I think I'm gonna do that really quickly. So this is where. Okay, so this is where I am, right? So I've got, these are my mics, my portable mics. I've got my little light there. There's my laptop. Got another light up there. Over here, right, my food. Food came in that bag. Here's the stuff, and here's my bag with all my other things, right? So not a elegant setup, but it works. And this is where I am. Now, what I wish is I had a hardwired connection that would have served me well, but I'm doing this on the Wi-Fi. But anyway, so back to the heat model. And so the heat model is what gives us all of those triggers. And what I want to point out is that the heat model doesn't just work when you're chilling out at the house, but the heat model works in lots of your different spaces. In fact, you can extrapolate the heat model, and you can see where those things are coming into play in many of the situations that you find yourselves in throughout your life. Right? Same thing with the cope model that we're currently going through. And we have applied the heat model. When I came up with the heat model came out of years and years of seeing patients, talking with them, clients that I have, my personal experience, all is built into the heat model. Same thing with the cope model. The cope model is a model that comes, the things that I talk about, the things that I tell patients to do, the things that I talk about with my clients as I'm coaching them. And so it is built on that experience. And all of these models, they're applied where they came up or came from the health space. But remember that much of what we deal with in our metabolic disease and our metabolic life really has to do with life in general. And so we can extrapolate these tools and these mechanisms to lots of areas in our life. Okay, so remember that that is definitely the case. So when we talk about traveling, once again, the changes that people will go through because we're out of our routine. When we are out of routine, then the likelihood of us doing something, quote unquote, that we don't want to do is higher. For example, at the airport, I was tempted, right? Because I walked by and there was, I mean, all kinds of stuff. I mean, there's a cookie place, there was a shake place. In fact, when we went to the, so here, I mean, the way things work, right? So we go to the place that my son wanted to get his food. And he says to the lady there that he would like a lemonade, a frosty lemonade, I think is what he asked for. And so she comes back and she has a cup and it is ice cream. It looks like ice cream at least. And so he says, this is not what I ordered. I ordered a frosty lemonade because he's thinking like more as a slushy, right? And so she says, no, here it is actually ice cream mixed with lemonade, right? So they go and they put ice cream and basically they whip it up. And so, I mean, essentially it's ice cream because it's still thick and so forth, but it just has a little bit tangy lemon flavor, which is okay. And so he says, no, can you make me just a lemonade, just a regular lemonade? And so he hands the cup back to her. And she said, oh no, you can keep it, right? And so he takes it. And he takes the lemonade, and so now we're going. And of course, he doesn't want it. What did I say? He doesn't want it, right? But he has this thing, and it has ice cream. Now, if you've been following me, you know, right? Now, I have a particular brand of ice cream that I like, but it's ice cream. And it's sweet. And I hadn't eaten for whatever number of hours. And so these emotions are building anyway, right? And so the temptation was to grab that because I was out of my routine, because the emotions were building, because there was access. It was there. I had it in my hand, or he had it in his hand. And so we go back to the gate because we took it back to see if my wife wanted it, and she said no, I don't want it. And so it's sitting in one of those cup holders. And finally, I said to him, hey, are you going to drink that? He says no. I said, we'll put it in the trash. So what was I doing? I was now cleaning up the excess. Because I knew if it stayed there, the more it stayed there, the more likely it was that I was going to want to and try to and eat and drink it. And so I had to take it out of my space, take it out of where I was so that it was not a temptation anymore. And so because I know myself, right? But because I was out of my routine. Emotions. If we're going to when we travel, we have to be mindful that there are things in our personal space, our personal journey that require us to prepare. So just as when we do our review of fasting, we talk about preparing for the fast, we talk about executing the fast, and we talk about breaking the fast. That preparation part is huge, right? Because it sets you up not just physically to abstain from food, but remember, fasting is a mental and an emotional thing as well. So that if we're not doing a good job of preparing for that, then that doesn't give us good possibility of success. And so in our travel, we have to understand that we've got to prepare for travel if we are fasting, if we are on a particular meal plan, if we are trying to be metabolically healthy. We've got to anticipate that, hey, something is going to happen and I need to put some things in place to try to deal with that. Okay, so make sure that you're doing that. And then, of course, access, right? That's another thing. And when I was coming, had my backpack, and I packed. I was packing all kinds of things. I had snacks in there. I had chips in there. I had some nuts in there, and I took them all out because if they were there, even if I wasn't hungry, even if I wasn't tempted, I was going to eat them. And so what I was doing in that case is I was stocking up. I was getting ready to come off of my plan, right? And there was no reason, but just my brain, my mind was saying, oh no, you have to have these just in case when you get to the hotel, you might want a snack. Why do I need a snack? I don't need a snack. But so I had to clean up the access, and then of course the perfect combination of sugar, salt, and fat, the bliss point, this idea that even as we were coming here, as I was sharing with you before, that I was anticipating the food that was going to be here, the food that we were going to eat, the food that we were going to get when our friend was coming over, right? That excitement, and it wasn't that there was a particular food. It was that we were going to be together with friends. We were going to be together with as a family. We're going to be in a different space. We're going to try some different types of food, right? So all of that was building up, and that all comes through the heat model. That's why the heat model is such a robust and exciting thing to do, or thing to have, because it sets us up. It gives us a framework that we can use to be thinking about the food and the things that happen in our space. All right, so that's what's going on, or that's what went on, and you guys kind of saw the blood sugars that resulted post fast as I was eating, and it's interesting that as I am, and I'm gonna go over there and see what my blood sugars are right now. So let's take a look here. Right. So that's what my blood sugar is now. This is the Dexcom. All right. So 157. Right. Okay. So that's what it is. That's what the blood sugar is now, and we'll see what that is. I haven't eaten any more since we've been talking, so that now is just the residual from what was going on blood sugar wise earlier. All right, let's see what else. I want to also talk a little bit about how do you deal with travel? How do you deal with travel? And the big part that I want to talk about in terms of travel is the stress that comes from travel. Because the stress that comes from travel really is what can derail us. I should say not really, but it derails us, and it is a big component of what happens for all the other parts of the heat model, because the heat model says that there are all these different triggers that are there, but they are not limited to just emotions. They're limited to habits and access and all the things that we just talked about. But emotions are a big component of all of the others. I don't know if you've ever realized that, but as we're talking about the heat model, there are components of emotion in all the other parts. For example, habits. The habits that we have are, and let me pull that back up so we can take a look at that. The habits that we have are driven by some emotional component, because we want to belong. We don't want to be separate. So when other people are eating, we want to eat, right? We want to be a part of the group. When other people are enjoying, and other people are laughing, and other people are doing all those things that are associated with food, we want to be a part. And so there's the emotion, the component of belonging and togetherness and not being separate, right? That's a huge part of what happens in our existence, because it's not just that food is whatever it is there's a reason for that. Remember, the food Always, the food is always doing something for us. And that's why we like it. That's why we're chasing after it. That's what the brain is looking for. It is looking for the stuff that makes it feel better, that puts it in that space of calm for the moment. For the moment, and that's the danger of a of buffering behavior as opposed to coping mechanisms. That the buffering behaviors are perpetuated because they seem as though they are solving the problem, and they relieve the problem, the issue, they relieve our feeling for a moment, but ultimately they do not solve the problem, because when that feeling goes away, we're right back to where we were, right? So nothing has changed. We just have, for that moment, kind of ignored it. We've put a barrier between us and the thing, right? But that's not what we want to do. What we want to do is we want to actually deal with it, and that's where the COPE model comes in, because it gives us a framework for how to deal with all of those. As we move through the space, I do want to remind you, though, that we have the ability to make change. We have the ability to set ourselves up for success, and I'll say it, but you hear me say it all the time. That is what the education, empowerment, and encouragement is. It is, how do we bring to bear all the resources that we have that puts us in a space of being successful? Because if we can do that, then we've put a system in place, right? Because often we don't succeed not because we don't want to succeed, or because we don't have the desire or the drive or even the time. We don't succeed because we don't have structure. Yeah, we don't succeed because we don't have structure. And so for the HEAT model, the COPE model, and all of that, it gives structure. It provides a space for us to be in, and the education, empowerment, and encouragement is the platform that we use to be able to say, okay, this is what we want to do. This is how we're going to roll. This is the space we want to find ourselves in. Okay, and so why don't we just hop over to this idea of unlimited. So we all have the potential. We all have the ability to chart our destiny. We have unlimited potential. We have the ability to say that from now on, this is going to be different. This is not how we're going to stay. And this is really a growth mindset. All right, that's a whole conversation we've got to have. So a growth mindset says that I am able to expand, I am able to get better, I am able to develop, and I'm able to acquire skills and resources that set me up for success. A fixed mindset says, no, what you have is what you have, and you can't do anything about it. So we want to expand that. We want to go into the growth mindset and move away from the fixed mindset. And the growth mindset is powerful because in the growth mindset, there is unlimited ability to acquire information, to acquire knowledge, to acquire skills. We're only limited by ourselves. Right? Think of all the information that's out there. Think of all the resources that are out there. Right? We could learn and learn and learn and learn and learn forever, which means that there is infinite possibility for education. In fact, when I think about unlimited, right, the symbol that comes to mind, and you'll begin seeing this, the symbol that comes to mind is the symbol for infinity. And infinity means limitless, unlimited. So your education possibility, your education capacity is unlimited. And if that's the case, then that now drives my desire to acquire tools to put into place, to to be the moving arm, to be the activating arm, to be the action part of this change in mindset, right? So education says, I'm infinite. I have infinite possibilities. Empowerment says, okay, for each of those infinite possibilities, I need a tool. I need some mechanism that's going to be the action part of it. And then, of course, encouragement comes with the community that comes alongside and builds and carries and pushes and pulls and allows us to kind of lean on them. So your ability to be different, your ability to create, your ability to be in a space that puts you in success is unlimited. Infinite is the term. Infinite is the phrase I want you to think about. There's nothing that is beyond your capacity. There's nothing that's beyond your ability to effect change in your metabolism. There are things that have been done in the past, and you hear me say this all the time, and sometimes we get caught up in the fact that we've done something, right? So, this stuff that I did before, it's so bad, that nothing else is going to, I can't undo that. Now there are some things that we've done. There's some behaviors that we've been involved in that have caused some damage. Yes, that is the case, right? We can't get away from that, and it doesn't change the fact that that is something that we did. That is a decision that at one time we made. But here's the thing. Notice what I said. That is a decision that at one time we made. Now we get the benefit of making a different decision, and that different decision says that that we don't have to be the way we are. We can make changes. We can be different. And if we can remember that, then we are setting ourselves up for, unlimited possibility. So remember that you're not the sum of, or all you are is not what you have done. You have the ability to change that. You have the ability to think differently. You have the ability to say, I'm going to be in a different space. And all that's given by the Triple E Formula for Success. We educate, we empower, and we encourage. Right? That's the three. Education, empowerment, and encouragement is the Triple E Formula for Success. And that's how we roll, right? Triple E Formula for Success, because it allows us to have that mindset change that I talked about, that growth mindset that says, no, I'm different. I can make different choices. I can be in a space that sets me up for success. So remember that is at your fingertips. That is part of what you have. And our goal now really is to access it. How do we get into the space? How do we bring that to bear in all the things that we do? And how do we make sure that we're setting ourselves up for success? So as we're traveling, and the reason I'm going through all of that is as we're traveling, right, you have been and you have done things a certain way all this time. So every time you travel, quote unquote, we fall off the rails, or we go off the ranch, or whatever the phrases are that we use when we're talking about when we're not following our plan. And that's happened over and over and over. And in fact, it doesn't just happen when you're traveling. It happens on holidays and on your birthday. It happens on any function that your family has. But I want to inform you, I want to convince you that it is something that you ultimately have control over. And so what I want to encourage, a couple of things, let's walk through. And as I'm going through this, I want you to begin thinking and seeing yourself there, right? Putting your situation, yourself in the situation, so that you are able to apply this to you personally and wherever you are. Okay. So one, there is this thing that we go through where we constantly are fighting. There's this dissonance in our brain, in our mind, and it is because we haven't quite yet grasped the idea that we get to make the choice. Right? We think that the situation, life, makes the choice for us, but we get to make the choice. So if at the airport I decided that I was going to get something when my son was getting his meal, that's a choice that I make. That's a choice that I'm allowed to make. That's a choice that I have the power, the ability, the responsibility to make. But I also have the choice, the possibility, the responsibility to make the opposite choice. It is up to me. And when I make the choice, I own what comes with the choice. I own the benefits that come with the choice. I own any of the issues or complications that come with the choice. It is my choice. But because we have done such a poor job, and when I say we as a society, we've done such a poor job of having people know that they have authority, that they're empowered, we're fighting with ourselves. Here's a silly example. You do something. You send an email, and in the email you said something that you shouldn't have said. Okay, and you didn't read the email. It went off and it's gone. And so what we do, instead of saying, okay, this is what happened. I did this email. I sent the email, and it's done. There's nothing I can't retract the email. It's out there. We spend time beating ourselves up and perseverating and thinking, and we come up with all these stories about what it means and how people are going to interpret it, how people are going to interpret us, and how people, right? We go through this whole process, and the energy that we spend going through the process, you know what happens to that energy? It causes our anxiety, it causes our cortisol level to go up, and it pushes us in the direction of eating, because that is our buffering behavior. And so our goal is that happened. I accept the responsibility. It's what I did. Now let's move on. Let's do something else. What else do I need to do to set myself up for success? Okay? That's what you want to be dealing with. So one, responsibility, right? And not that I'm bashing anyone because they don't have personal responsibility, but I want to empower you because we have taken that away from you. Right? We've said that, no, you can't do such and such. You can't do this. You can't do that. No, yes, you can. But you have to understand that there are benefits and consequences. And if you've dealt with it, if you know how you're going to deal with it, then that's okay. And then the next thing to understand is that anything that we do is not forever. Any decision we make is not forever. If I had made a decision to drink the lemonade slushy or whatever it was, that was a decision, and it's not forever. It's not a forever thing. If I break my fast, then it's not a forever thing. I can restart the fast. If I decided to fast and maintain the fast, it's not a forever thing, because at some point I'm breaking the fast. So the things that we do are not forever. But sometimes we stress or we perseverate over a particular thing because we think, okay, if I make that decision, if I do that, that's going to be, oh my goodness, forever. And it's not a forever thing. The other thing I want you to know is that as you are moving through the space, as you're moving through this idea of metabolic disease and improvement and reversing diabetes, you have the ability to pivot, to change, to be flexible. So in the case of my travel today, I could have decided that this week I wasn't going to travel. This week I wasn't going to fast. But I decided I was going to fast, and I was going to fast for that 24 hours. It's not 48 hours. and I was going to break the fast with the friend. You're allowed to do that. Nobody says that just because you do intermittent fasting, you do 16/8, that you've got to do 16/8 every day if something is happening this week. Right? It's your anniversary, it's a birthday, it's whatever the function is, or whatever you decided. You say, hey, I've been doing this now for several months, and so today I'm not going to do the intermittent fasting. There are some things I want to do. Whatever, that you can be flexible. And if we are flexible, that allows us the robustness of managing this disease, reversing this disease, without it being a this dread that we go through every time we think about it. Now, this diabetes is already a devastating disease. It already takes a big toll, and our goal is to make sure that we are setting ourselves up in the best possible way for success. And when we struggle, right, when we're rigid and we're not flexible, then that causes more issues for us. The next thing I want to talk about is this idea of our amygdala being hijacked. And you'll hear more and more about that, because it is a big thing that we don't talk about. When those emotions come up, then those emotions put a block between the communication between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala. And then the amygdala at that point is just reactionary. But when we are able to deal with the emotion, when we're able to pause, when we're able to think, right, we allow the prefrontal cortex to now come and modulate the amygdala and say, hey, yeah, you don't have to run, because that tiger that you see, even though you're trying to keep me safe, that tiger is behind bars because it's in a zoo. Okay? So prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, those emotions will hijack that process. And we want to be in the process of figuring out, well, not figuring out, because we've already figured out the process of learning, which brings us to my next point. The things that we learn, the tools that we are using, that we should be using, cannot be learned only during the event. You've got to be practicing this. You've got to be rehearsing it. You've got to understand the models. You've got to understand the structure. You've got to understand the tools. Review those tools over and over and over, so that when you are in the situation, you're able to apply it without then having to go learn it. Now, you still have to refer back to it during the situation, but at least you'll be able to implement it better. And then the more you use it, the more likely you are to be successful. Because I'll tell you, the first time you try to use any of the models, it's not gonna work. It's gonna be tough, right? Because your body, your brain is so used to doing things in a certain way that it's gonna take time. But the more you use it, the more beneficial it becomes. So make sure that you are taking the time to do that and set yourself up for success. Because if you can do that, then the sky's the limit. That goes back to our unlimited idea, right? The sky is the limit. When you're traveling, make sure that the people around you are aware of what you're doing, right? Make sure they know that, okay, it looks like we are, or not looks like, but we're going to be fasting, and this is what we're going to be doing. This is how we're going to be working it, so that they can also support you, because they are your traveling accountability group, right? Right? They're your traveling accountability group, and they are right there, and they can give you insights, they can give you support, they can give you so much of the things that you need in setting yourself up for success if you use them. What's the phrase? Don't negate the benefit of the people that are around you, the access that you have, all of the benefits and all the resources that you have, right? Make sure that you are using that. Make sure you're putting that, bringing that to bear to all the things that you do, because you're able you're able to do that. You're able to be successful if you will um, use the folks around you, and that is an amazing process. So fasting brings up so much, or traveling brings up so much of the things that we talk about, and it is a perfect way to review some of the benefits of all the tools that we've talked about. Okay, so make sure you're doing that. Make sure you are putting in the time that you need to be successful. And I'm going to, and so make sure that when you come, you join the challenges. Don't just let them be things that are on the table, things that are on the video, things that are back there that you're using. Make sure that you join the challenges. Also, make sure that you are sharing your story, right? That you let us know when you're having successes. Let us know when you are having challenges, so we can come alongside you. We can support you and let you know that you're not by yourself. Then invite a friend. Let them know there's a space that they can go where they can improve their metabolic health, and that is right here. Anyway, I'm always glad when I'm here with you, able to share with you. This is Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health in your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level. And in this year, new you. Good night, everybody. Food. Those are my three things. And I couldn't figure out, why do I love those things so much? But it all relates to my dad. That's what my dad used to buy for us.